the 1950s diplomacy of the United States is a series of real and imagined Cold War crises. And one effect of this will be to draw us further and further into the Middle East. On May 14th of 1948, the United Nations establishes Israel, and Truman recognizes Israel's right to exist. The Arabs are sympathetic with the Palestinians, that would be the people who were living there before the Jews showed up. And the Arabs, in defense of their Palestinian brethren, because they're all Arabs, the Arab nations surrounding Israel will attack Israel as soon as it is created in the Arab-Israeli War of 1958. America is worried because we do support Israel, and we see Israel as a staunch anti-communist ally in the region. But on the other hand, the Arab nations around Israel have a lot of oil, so we're not really sure which way to go. We have not committed to our unconditional support of Israel yet. There's the Arab-Israeli War. Meanwhile, in 1953, Iran, who has been freed by Britain as part of their stepping back from colonialism after World War II, has elected, before 1953, they've elected a leader named Mohammad Mossadegh. Now, Mossadegh wants to install more socialist-type programs, programs to help the poor, universal health care, a lot of the things that do happen in America and in the United States. But Iran is not a terribly wealthy country, and so what he decides to do is to nationalize the oil under the ground in Iran. That will then be controlled by the Iranian government, who will sell it on the world market to fund these programs to improve the lives of the Iranian people. This is, of course, simply unacceptable to American oil companies, who pressure Eisenhower, who gets together with England and plans a coup, which the CIA is behind, actually a cousin of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's, and it's an amazing story. But the Americans caused this coup to overthrow Mossadegh, the democratically elected leader of Iran, and install a monarch, a dictator, Shah Pahlavi. He had actually been his family had been in control of Iran for a long time before the democracy popped up, but we're going to put him back into power. And the reason we do that is because he agrees to serve America's corporate interest. He agrees to essentially be a puppet of America, so we put him in charge. He will abuse the Iranian people in really dramatic and significant ways, which is, of course, the source of the tension between Iranians and Americans today. We'll revisit that in a few chapters. If you're not in my class, you might read this quote. It's pretty amazing. Another area of the Middle East that we get involved in is going to center around Egypt. Egypt has come to be under the control of a man named Gamal Abdul Nasser. And Nasser has a really interesting idea. He says that that the Arabs should not join Team America or Team Russia, that they should represent their own interest. The idea of the Russians and the Americans at this time is that everybody in the country has to get behind one side or the other. Nasser says that the Arabs should basically set themselves up as a third player in this, based primarily on the deal that they have lots of oil. And he rejects the Cold War game. He preaches an idea of Arab nationalism. He actually wants all the Arab states to form together into one super country that controls a huge amount of the world's oil and stand up to both the Soviets and the Americans and serve their own interest. To this end, he begins trading with both the Soviets and the Americans. Now, we don't like that. If we say if you're going to do trade with America, you're not allowed to trade with communist countries. And in 1956, John Foster Dulles withdraws promised American support to build a dam on the Nile River, the Aswan Dam. Nasser, unwilling to simply give up on this program because we won't pay for it, seizes the Suez Canal, which is very important. It's that thing there that connects the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean ultimately. It had been controlled by the British, but he says it's Egypt's soil, so he takes control of the Suez Canal and uses the profits from the canal to build the Aswan Dam. Then the Israelis, the Egyptians, and the French launch a crazy scheme, and what they're going to do is they're going to have the Israelis invade Egypt to start a war, and the Israelis will be able to take the canal, which they do easily, and then the British and the French will move in and say, oh, we got to stop the war, we don't want instability in the Middle East. But of course, notice what they've done. They would have seized the canal, which is all they really wanted to begin with. They didn't tell America about this plan. They assumed America would back them up because America is traditionally allies with the British, French, and the Israelis. But Eisenhower is concerned that we are going to push the Arabs and all their oil into the arms of the communists. And so the U.S. does not do what they're expected to do. They denounce the invasion. It doesn't help that Nasser has ships sunk all along the Suez Canal, so the whole thing becomes inoperable. The whole plan for Britain and France is a disaster. America goes to the UN, denounces the actions of the French, the British, and the Israelis, and they pull out. They back off. And Nasser wins this. The prestige of Nasser is incredibly high after this, and really it's the end of Britain being a major power in the Middle East, which has been going on for generations and generations.